Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next session of Iowa Prison Perspectives. This is a collaboration between Living Beyond the Bars of Iowa, Iowa Cure, and Iowa Justice Action Network. I'm Sue Hutchins. For those of you who have been here before, you already know this, but I'm going to run through it just in case there are people who are new. I do interviews with people who have been in prison, people who have loved ones who are in prison currently or have been in prison, people who worked for the Department of Corrections at one time or another, and people who are advocates or work in the reentry of helping people who come out of prison. So those are the four main areas that these interviews cover. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what your thoughts are about this channel. I would love to hear if you agree or if you disagree with what I'm doing or what you hear, what different interviews mean to you or don't mean to you. My address, my email address, or actually it's a Gmail address, is iowaprisonperspectives@gmail.com. And that's iaprisonperspectives@gmail.com. One of the things that I was asked to do by some of the viewers a few months ago was to find out what happens not only in Iowa, but in neighboring states. What happens as far as lifers are concerned, what happens as far as release is concerned, what the prison conditions are like, that sort of information, so that people have an idea of to compare by of what Iowa prisons are like and what surrounding states are like. And so we're fortunate today on two levels. We're fortunate today. We have a woman who was a lifer and has been commuted from another state. And those are the two. It's wonderful that we have a woman to speak. This is the first woman who's been incarcerated that will be on this channel. And also somebody who earned commutation. So I'm going to turn it over to her. Her name is Kelly, and I think that you'll really, really get a lot out of what she has to say. So thank you very much. And Kelly, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sue. I so appreciate you and giving this opportunity to talk about what it's like to serve time and also what it's like to get out and fight for that release. It is so important. Everyone deserves the opportunity to have hope, to see a future, to see progress, as a lot of the people that I was incarcerated with started their time as very young adults. Learning and maturing and growing and changing is what life is about. That's the whole purpose of what life is about. And unfortunately, sometimes people make mistakes before they're able to get to that maturity. And unfortunately, when they make those mistakes, people get harmed. And unfortunately, that is the way society is right now, in a pattern of harming each other in a system, whether it is in our school system or in our education around prisons. We see this harm happening every day. As someone who tried as a very young adult to get support around domestic violence in my home, I found it safer on the streets than my home. I did not receive support growing up from any entities, whether it was the police, whether it was parole, because my mother was unfortunately incarcerated almost my whole life. Um, in all those different areas, going to my local school for support, support just wasn't there. They knew about the domestic violence in my home. They feared for me. Unfortunately, they feared my father enough to engage with police, but the good old boy network was so normal back in the day that that they didn't do much, if anything, except take me home each time the school would call them. And so, unfortunately, I learned really early on that nobody was coming. By the time I was 19 years old, my mother was incarcerated again, and I found myself in my second relationship that was also riddled with domestic violence, like my first, and attempting to get out of this situation. Um, and make a better life for myself. I am going to school day and night. In 1995, I graduated from high school, and a few short months later, unfortunately, as I was just about to go to the college with my kids I was going into the realm of preschool teaching. And so I was going to be at a preschool where the kids would be able to go to school with me, and I could earn their stay, and other teachers would assist to take care of them during the day, and I would be able to work with them with other students in the late afternoon and evening. It was my dream to have a daycare center. Unfortunately, my ex-husband took not only my dream, but he took my son. Um, he had apparently lost his mind a little bit, was doing a lot of drugs that I did not know about. And I woke up in the middle of the night after us not speaking. I was sleeping on the couch because we weren't speaking, and he was out partying with some people. And I woke up to him um, trying to tattoo his name on my ankle. I was tied to the couch. It's how I realized it was time to go. I needed to get out and get out as fast as I could. Made a plan with my mother, who was currently incarcerated. Um, I am now 21, trying to just survive it. There's no one for 6 hours away from me, from where I lived. My mother was another 6 hours the opposite direction, incarcerated, and I needed support. And so she helped me make the plan. And unfortunately, or fortunately enough for me, I had I went to go the next day. I went to go register for the college, continue with my normal plans. I didn't know what to do. I was in a state of shock that this had happened. We weren't speaking. Of course, I couldn't go anywhere alone. So he and my two children were with me, and the lady at the registration desk could probably just tell from the stress and
Mhm.
anxiety I was going through, that something was going on. And she suggested that he take the kids outside while we fill out the paperwork. And she didn't hand me any paperwork. She handed me a phone number and told me to go to a phone right there and make this call. Unfortunately, the closest domestic violence center was over an hour away. I didn't understand that at the time. I didn't have transportation. Um, and so there wasn't like a bus or a dial-a-ride in my town. There was a Greyhound every other day, and I was supposed to be on it. And unfortunately, he found out. And as I was out doing the last things that the domestic violence center suggested I do, get all the last little bills paid, get little things ready for the Greyhound the next day, and I was supposed to go get dinner. I felt it in my gut, and I called home, ran home. I had to pass the police station there and back, so it wasn't as if they didn't know exactly where I was when I was where. I immediately fought him for the phone and called them. As soon as I got home, immediately running to his room and trying to wake him up. Uh, After fighting him for the phone, I didn't know that he was about to kill me. His intention was murder suicide, I guess. I didn't know this until closer to trial.
Mhm.
The police had found a knife under my son's toy chest, where he had kind of like pushed it under there in the scuffle. Um, I had no idea. Some times I every day I wish it was me and not my son. The
Yes.
reality is that he harmed Justin to punish me. Um, every time he thought I had done something wrong, he didn't do it in front of me. I didn't believe in spankings. I didn't believe in that kind of punishment. It's what I went through. I lost my hearing due to blows to the head before age of 4. So I did not believe in that kind of punishment. I left home at 14 to avoid that punishment.
Yeah.
Um, and so to be put in this position knowing the system knew the whole time. The detectives
Mhm.
told me from day one, we know you didn't do anything. There was 84 witnesses at my trial, several years later, 3 years later, 84 witnesses. And you know, I understood his mom and his mom's best friend trying to testify in his behalf, those two
Sure.
witnesses against me. But the reality was the truth was evident, and I never expected that aiding and abetting liability would give me the same amount of time as him. I wouldn't help him. I wouldn't take their deals, because I felt it would help him. And the reality is, he didn't call 911. He didn't try to get help. He called his mother. In another state. He didn't
Mm,
call for help, and I couldn't help him, even if it meant I was facing life without the possibility of parole or a death sentence. I
mm,
faced a death sentence, and the truth is that nobody can blame me
mm,
more than me. I allowed him in my life. Did I think he would become a monster? No, I didn't. Um, did I know that he was angry and a man child and unable to do anything in life or make a life for himself? Yeah, I knew those things were happening, and I was struggling to make the best of what I had. Um, uh, and I was fighting to be better and do better.
mhm,
And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And when I was incarcerated, the first thing I did, as someone serving life without the possibility of parole, coming to grips with everything that had transpired in the trial and all the things that had been disclosed. And um, it seemed like it was more about me and my history um, than Justin and what his life was like. And I just wanted the truth. I just wanted to understand what had happened. And the truth is, he wasn't honest. And, he has been honest since then and has admitted that he has done this. Um, Not that it changes anything. The
right.
courts knew the myths and the lies that got me prosecuted, saying that I preferred school over my kids and I just had moved on with life. And that's why I allowed this to happen, which is absolutely disgusting.
Mhm,
Everything I did was revolved around them. I was blessed enough to be able to first start my own healing and understanding process for my own abuse, and then why I didn't understand it. I knew I was afraid of my abusers, and unfortunately, there was more than a few. I didn't understand that my son Justin would mimic his ex. He wasn't his father, the person that was in his life. Sorry, that was a hard one for me. He mimicked him. He wanted to be around him. He showed so much love and admiration for him. And the truth was, it wasn't till the trial and understand it, traumatic bonding, and understanding that
mhm,
Justin was protecting me, which was probably the most devastating because I should have been protecting him, and I really believed that I was. Um, it was extremely difficult, and I needed my own healing and grieving process. I know that my son knows that I didn't harm him. I knew the system knew I didn't harm him, but they didn't care. And so I had to deal with what that looked like. And in the end, I was blessed enough to create programs first around grief, because so many people were grieving inside.
Mhm.
At that same time, it as we were building this grief component in our institution, we had a sister institution that was getting the opportunity to learn end of life care and hospice care.
Mhm.
Um, because our institution didn't have that aspect, we were blessed enough to have the other institution
Mhm.
utilize those skills until they forced us out of our institution, and I was able to then go to that institution and with welcoming arms
Mhm.
to learn that training and be able to support people. I was doing it at the first institution with the few folks due to my job abilities and where I worked in the positions I had working with leadership. I was able to work with a couple ladies who didn't want to be transferred. And it was such a humbling experience because these were people who, at one point, I'm sitting at the dinner table with, or I'm working in the job site and I'm teaching her how to work on the press in our graphic arts class. And then I am holding her hand at the end of her life
Yes.
because her loved ones were out of state. And though they did fly in and were able to spend a day or two with her, it is extremely difficult for loved ones to be able to be with their
Mhm.
family inside. Some institutions will allow a couple hours of visiting, but if they're blessed enough to have a hospice program, their inside population would visit and be with that person to ensure that they did not die alone, which is
Mhm.
extremely important.
Important.
Um, it not only can help a person as they make their living amends, which for Justin, every day as I do my work, he is at the center of my thoughts and in all of my conversations.
Mhm.
I also help create a domestic violence program that is still going today for Curriculum Strong, looking at the basics of domestic violence, looking at boundaries, because that is nine, 10, nine out of 10 times it's because people aren't taught boundaries. Most times when situations happen when children are extremely young, it's because they're told to respect those adults
Mhm.
and keep those secrets. And so it's that education around what that looks like. Then there's a batter's perspective. So you're looking at what it looks like on both ends of the spectrum. If you were that batter or that person who continues to get in the same types of relationships with someone who has been abusive to you, it may help you understand why you allow
Mhm.
behaviors and what those boundaries look like. And then
Sure.
the last section is incest and rape. And with that curriculum having such a deep impact on my life and from such an early age and having so much disclosed to me, learning how to deal with those issues. Nine times out of 10, we found others in our immediate situation, our roommates who had the same experiences. So we were able to create a curriculum to start that healing process instead of staying stuck in that shame. And with that, it did 23 years total. And after 22 years, I was blessed to be given an opportunity, actually, about 14 years in, to start fighting for my life under the domestic violence law, looking at ways to offer relief for individuals who weren't the direct perpetrator, who were punished for surviving abuse. And so, as I was working towards that appeal, going back and forth to court, understanding that the myths were still being thrown out there, the misconception that yeah, that it's okay to prosecute someone for surviving, for no other reason but surviving. Like it wasn't, I was doing everything I could possibly do to make a better life for us. I was just trying to survive the best that I could, asking for resources multiple times to try to get the kids into like a preschool type situation, all different avenues to try to help me because there was no way, if I didn't have a high school diploma, there's no way I was going to do better. And so in that fight, I was able to learn a lot of really disturbing things about my first trial, and was just fighting in hopes to get another opportunity. But I also knew that I was affecting my family with this hope, because the courts just kept denying it year after year. Court of Appeals would grant me, and then my county would deny it. So from 2012 until 2017, we were fighting back and forth in court every few months. I wasn't
Yeah.
going myself, others were going for me. And I had built amazing opportunity because I had over 10,000 signatures to support my release, to
Mhm.
try to advocate for me. They were building coalitions and educating people around domestic violence at this time. So it was really helping to push this movement. But part of it in the beginning is I was so stuck on they're right, it is my fault. I started to believe all the myths that they were saying, even though I knew I was fighting as hard as I could. And now in retrospect, after looking at the situation, just a simple Google search enrages me. And this is why is I did a Google search from my house to the school. One way is 5.7 miles to my school, and I had
Mhm.
to do that twice a day. And
Yeah.
and to say that I was lazy and
Yeah.
just unwilling to do better, and I was fighting so hard that I had to beg my teachers to allow me to go to school during the day and at night just to
Mhm.
finish sooner. To be punished like that, those are the myths that people believe. That's what the jury believed. Now, to be honest, the jury thought I was going to get a year. They even told the judge, well, I'm not going to the penalty phase. And the judge says you can't consider the verdict. You can't consider the verdict. So that doesn't matter. We are going to the penalty phase. So within 5 minutes, they had rendered a verdict on one of us, but we didn't know which one. So did they decide that one of us was getting one sentence and one was getting the other? We didn't know. So I had to wait 4 days to find out that we were both getting life without. But they had had a decision on me in 5 minutes because they're unanimously, we shouldn't even be at this part of the phase for her. We shouldn't be determining that she's never
Mhm.
going to go home. We gave her aiding and abetting. That's what one of the jurors said to that judge. And aiding and abetting is okay for 1 year, but liability gives you the same amount as the person who committed the crime. And so that reality isn't understood by society as a whole. They see this person is guilty of every component. They
Yeah.
physically are touching this person. They're physically harming another. Not they're surviving. Not
Yeah.
that I am the only one. There's so many like me, male, female. It
Mhm.
cross races, it crosses age gaps. It just happens every day, and it's about prosecuting. It's not about getting someone to be accountable for their actions in a situation. I could easily say, and in fact, my board commissioner actually said that I took too much responsibility. I could easily say it's my fault every day. I feel that way. And
Mhm.
everything that I do, I judge myself for allowing him in my life. Did I know better? Did I think I was doing better than what I had in the past? Absolutely, I thought I was doing better. And I was doing the best I could with what I had, in
Mhm.
a rural neighborhood where I, didn't have the ability to just, call up somebody to come pick me up. Everyone else was so far away that I had to make a plan to do this. And unfortunately, within those 4 days, that plan did not pan out. Um, Unfortunately, the night before, I was to be, to be able to get away on that bus. We were all going to LA. We are all going to go to a town together and then separate from there. He just wasn't going to know. I didn't know where my sister lived, so it would have been okay,
Mhm.
because he wouldn't have known. And so even at board, after 23 years, even after all of that work, that accountability is still there for every single person who goes through that process.
Yes.
After being commuted, I then went to the board process, and then I went through the parole process, and being accountable there as well. And I was released into a transitional home, also 6 hours away. Actually, more than that, about 8 hours away from my family now, because board still wanted to
Mhm.
make sure I was safe. And the reality is, my upbringing was part of the problem. I had spent my entire life rationalizing and justifying the abuse and the behaviors, because how else was I going to survive? It
Mhm.
wasn't to make light of what was happening in my life, it was to survive my life. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, I carried that into my adulthood, and and minimized the abuse because I didn't see the physical abuse, so I minimized the yelling and the screaming and the degrading. And and so even then, even as I'm on parole, I'm still judged by parole. Parole's checking up on me and making sure what relationships look like, and
Mhm.
that you have healthy relationships, that you have people that they, as parole agents, can talk to about your character on a daily basis, and as a reference tool to make sure that you're doing okay. And there was groups that I got to participate in. Honestly, most of them I taught inside, and they
Yeah.
could have done a better job, truthfully. Uh, but then I would also add that even in that element, there was a lot of discrimination. Men were able to work right away when they were out, and we were forced to wait as women. We had time limits on when could come in, but the men, could be out later. So there's still a lot of discrimination. We couldn't have our own bank accounts, but they could. Um, Different things like that needed fixing a little bit.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we were growing, we were learning, and yeah, and blossoming. And I know as I continue that I'll continue to do that.
Yes. Yes. Well, my goodness, that is harrowing what you have been through. It's harrowing. How old was your son when he died?
3.5.
3.5. So he was just a baby. He was just a baby. And I think you told me before that your ex-husband is still incarcerated. Is that right?
Yes, he is.
Yes. 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 Well, at least that part turned out reasonably, I don't want to say fair, but at least that part turned out where you got commuted and he has not. And how long have you been, how long has it been since you've been released?
I've been out for 6 years.
6 years.
Sorry, having a little bit of reaction. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Bless your heart. Bless your. Well, I
I
didn't
just
want this
miss
to
him.
be too much for you. I'm so
Yeah, it's
sorry.
okay. I just miss him a lot. Every
Yes,
day.
your
He's
baby.
everywhere with me. Yes,
Yes. Yeah, of course he is. And his name was Justin.
Justin. And I guess the hardest part is I'm blessed to be able to have these experiences, but it should have been him. He should have been able to have these experiences. So
Mhm.
makes it
Exactly.
hard.
He lived his life. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. For sure. So, is there anything I can do to help with the trigger and the
No,
emotion?
it's okay. It's
It's
okay.
okay. It's okay. Yeah, I imagine you don't actually talk in depth about this very often anymore. And
Oh
so,
no, all the time actually.
oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the time.
It
It's
always comes up.
important
It's always
because
with you. It's always with you.
yeah, and it's important because it's about making sure people understand what it really looks like, what it really feels like, to
Mhm.
have these kind of sentences, um, and to understand that when you hear about somebody incarcerated and you automatically assume they're guilty, you might be wrong.
Mhm.
You automatically assume that the sentence is fair. You might be wrong.
Well, and I think also there's an automatic assumption that people just belong in prison, that you wouldn't get sent to prison if you didn't belong there. And so much disparity between men and women. I mean, you're his mother for heaven's sakes. That kind of blame. It
Well,
seems to
and
be
I think
much more on the mother
part
than
of
the father.
part of the blame is that was exactly it. Is I should have known better. I should have seen better. I
Mhm.
should have done better. But versus my experience,
Right.
I
You
was
can't,
doing 1,000% better.
right. Right. And you can't know what
And
you don't know.
yeah, and
And you
striving
can't do
and
what you don't know how to
fighting.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And when you keep, asking the same for the same support and being denied, like I was denied at first because of potty training, and then found out that that wasn't a stipulation, that the kids couldn't go to daycare because they both had to be potty trained. Well, my daughter was at the time that this happened was 18 months, but then when I was first applying, she was a newborn. And then as we went through the process, we kept going through the process of reapplying and showed them all the documents of all the times we reapplied. All of that disappeared right before trial. They
Oh
have
my.
no documentation of me applying at all,
Oh my.
except the note in a the other CPS file where she noticed the another denial number 6. So there was a notation. They were there somewhere because it was notated in a file. But
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
all the ways that I was trying, and they because it was like a uh, she was commending me on finding this new avenue, considering I had
Mhm.
been denied 6 times by going to the school and doing it through the school. She commended me in writing, and that's how it got into court records. But that just, one example. The his medical documents that had whiteout on them and erase marks, like that's okay. Like
Well, it's
it just,
illegal, but okay.
yeah, yeah. It's just
As
like
a
those.
social worker, as a retired social worker and therapist, it's illegal to do that. But
Yeah, it's just so many things that I understand. We want to make sure that we get it right, and that if
yes,
someone has done harm, that they pay for their crime. And I absolutely understand that, but it should be about individual accountability. It should be about accountability for the situation, not just blanket, I want as many people incarcerated as possible. And we can't
right.
throw away the key. Like the truth is, they're not the land of the living. It's not a new universe for them to live in. They're supposed to be able to learn how to change, grow, mature, and give themselves the ability to see, how society lives and learn to live the same
Mhm.
way. It's not
Right.
about keeping them in and never releasing someone, or at least it shouldn't be. It may be where we're landing with sentencing, but that's not what it was intended for. And all we're doing is incarcerating them, giving them no hope to do something different. When I applied for commutation, it is a hard process. When I applied,
Mhm.
I wasn't sure I deserved it. I
Mhm.
was doing all the work. I was healing my community inside. I was making my world better right where I was. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. I knew I didn't do what they said I did to deserve to be incarcerated. And I knew
Mhm.
I was being punished for surviving when he
Mhm.
should have taken me out. Absolutely. And it should have been me and not Justin. Absolutely.
Mhm.
He never should have harmed him. Um, but the reality was, I was here and I still deserved an opportunity to show the growth and the change. We can't expect people to want to do better, even inside the prison, and then tell them, well, it doesn't matter if you do better. We can't expect them to continue to do better.
Right.
And
Right.
and as we're getting out, we have to give them resources. I
Exactly.
was blessed enough to have the outside community supporting me because I had so many people sign my petition. But when it came right down to it, um, it was me fighting tooth and nail to find the resources to be
Mhm.
provided, because even the program that was available to us, they didn't want to teach us how to be financial literate. They didn't want to teach us computer skills. They kept
Mhm.
sending us to parole for that, but then parole kept counseling. And
Mhm.
so, it's about us knowing how to work in the future. How do you do a job application if
Yes.
you don't know how to work a computer? And job applications aren't done any other way these days. And so you have to learn those skills. It's not that
Mhm.
you don't want to, you're not taught inside
Mhm.
unless you're a few weeks to the gate. And a short termer, you might get a reentry class that might teach you a couple skills on how to write a resume. But if you're a long termer, you're not blessed with that. So what do you
Right.
do? How do you get that opportunity? You have to learn it when you get out. How do you help them succeed
Mhm.
if you don't have those skills? And if you're not trying to help them succeed, then you can't blame them for continuing to come to prison.
Right.
That's
Right.
a reality,
Right.
because if the tools aren't out there, the funding's definitely there. Prisons are given the funding to provide the resources towards release. It's what they do with them. Do they
Mhm.
capitalize on the trainings they have available? Do they allow the incarcerated population to utilize the skills that are there? Do they empower them to teach them new skills? What resources are they providing to them? Because you should
Mhm.
want everyone to come out and succeed. You should
Yes.
want them to be able to rebuild. Um, if not, all we're doing is creating more incarceration, which costs more to the state. And
Exactly.
nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Exactly. Exactly. It just feeds the prison system and the prison population. And like you said earlier, all the myths about people and about prisoners and about domestic violence and about a variety of different things, about poverty, about a lot of things. So, yes, yes.
Sure.
Well, I am thrilled that you were willing to come on and tell your story. And I am in awe over your ability to have recovered and turn your life around. And I know that you work very hard now trying to change laws and do domestic violence work. So I applaud you very strongly for that. I'm
Thank
I
you
don't
so
know
much.
you
Yeah.
very well. I sit on a committee with you, but I don't really know you very well. But I certainly am impressed with you and have a lot of respect for you and what you've been through. And I'm grateful that there are people like you doing what you're doing with what's happened to you. So thank you very, very much for your willingness to come on. And I certainly do appreciate it. And I would imagine that the audience that listens to this will appreciate this also. So thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. Um, so that was quite a powerful story to me, and I am assuming to those of you who are listening. If you want to get in touch with me, once again, the address is Iowa Prison Perspectives at gmail.com, and that's IA Prison Perspectives at gmail.com. One of the things that I want to mention, since we're talking about commutation and we're talking about getting out of prison and we're talking about the length of time that people do and the age that people go to prison, Iowa has just dropped a bill in the last 5 days that raises the age of juveniles from 18 to 20. And so if you're, if you would, if you're interested and you would want to get involved in that effort, please write to your representatives and your senators saying that you support that bill and that you would like to see more people have a second chance. That particular bill will actually affect 85 plus people in Iowa. It does not guarantee commutation. What it does is allow a person who has a life sentence committed their crime prior to the age of 20 that they have the right to see the board of parole. They have the right to be considered for commutation, for parole. Not for commutation, but for parole. It does not guarantee. It's not like if that bill is passed, everybody gets out. No, no, no. That's not what happens. I am of the belief that there are people who we are not safe with in our midst. There are people who belong away from society because they actually are dangerous. I believe that there are a whole lot more people who are doing life sentences that do belong out here, that do have the right and should be given a second chance. So that bill would allow that to happen, would allow them the opportunity to see the board of parole and possibly be paroled. So with that, I will close for this evening. And again, a very, very special thank you to Kelly. I think she's a very brave woman and very courageous, and I really applaud her recovery and her advocacy to make changes. She continues to work with people and continues to try to change laws and make things more realistic and better for the population. So thank you all very much, and I will see you again in a few days or in a week. Take care of yourselves and please contact me. Let me know what you think and take good care of yourselves. Bye for now.